Hello everyone, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. If you haven't seen a SUPboarder video before, we are here to help guide you through making sure you buy the best equipment out there for you. Yes, this video has been paid for by Red Paddle Co, but it's not our job to sell the gear, it's our job to make sure you buy the best gear for you. My name is Ruben, and in this video, I'm going to talk you through the new Red Paddle Co Sport Plus range. So in this video, I'm obviously going to give you a run through and a review of these two new boards. Also, I'm going to be looking at a little bit of the original Sport range and seeing where these boards really sit in the Red Paddle Co lineup. And by the end of this video, hopefully you have a very good idea if these boards are right for you. But of course, if you haven't, you're still a bit unsure, get a comment in the comments below. And if you want to ask lots more questions and really compare it to some other boards in the market, get onto our subscription service, SUPboarder Pro, where you can ask us infinite number of questions via our Ask the Experts. So the two Sport Plus boards I've got in the studio with me at the moment, I've got the 12.6 by 30 at 4.7 inches thick, and I've got the 14 foot by 28 at 5.9 inches thick. The original Sport range, you have the 11 foot by 30 at 4.7 inches thick. You have the 11.3 by 32 at 4.7 inches thick. And you have the 12.6 by 30 at 5.9 inches thick. Now the prices between the two ranges are comparable, to be honest. The Sport Plus in a 12.6 is sitting at $899 board only, or you can opt for a package that includes the pump, the bag, a leash, and that's retails at £1,049. The 14 foot is going to be a little bit more money, $949 board only, or £1,099 as a package. Now you can opt to go for paddle packages, different levels of paddle packages as well. Now the first thing I'm going to bring in, this is really nice to see a brand, and a well-known brand, bringing in the ability to buy a board only package. Now a lot of you out there are probably going to already have a board in your quiver. So if you've already got a board in your quiver and you don't mind maybe sharing that pump, and you're obviously not going to paddle them at the same time unless you've got friends on the water, you can probably share some of that equipment, maybe even the backpack, from the other board. So it's really good. Obviously it's great for the environment and it's great for our pockets as well. So while we're talking about the Sport and the Sport Plus, let's keep a look at the big differences here. You'll see that the Sport range, they have the 12.6 by 30, and that is a 5.9 inch thick. But now they have a 12.6 by 30 at 4.7 inch thick. Now bringing that thickness down the board is going to give you a better paddling experience, especially if you are a mid to lighter weight rider. Now you may or may not be aware, but if you're dropping the thickness of the board, you are going to get some pros and cons to that. The pros are, for the lighter or mid-weight riders, you're going to find that the board is going to sit lower in the water. It's going to give you a more sort of attached paddling experience to the water, so you're not going to be so high out of it. It's not going to get affected by the wind so much. Now a thicker board is going to give you more stiffness, and it's going to be better at carrying more weight, which is why the original Red Sport 12.6 is better for carrying people up to 120 kilos, 130 kilos, but the newer Sport Plus is going to be so much better for the mid to lighter weight paddlers. Now, they've kept the thickness in the 14 by 28 Sport Plus, at 5.9 inches, and that's really just due to the fact that it's a 14-foot board. It does work much better being 5.9 inches in thickness. Now, if you could make a 14-foot inflatable board thinner than that, dropping that thickness, lighter paddlers would appreciate and like paddling it. But at the moment, in the current market, even with Red Paddle Co putting as much development as they can into inflatable boards, they still think that the 5.9 inch thickness on the 14-foot is needed. So I'm going to talk about the new 12.6 and 14 foot and what they paddle like on the water in a minute. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the stuff most of you are going to go for in your package, which is probably going to be the Titan pump and the backpack. Now the Titan pump is an award-winning pump. This is actually the Titan 2 pump. It's a very easy pump to use. It's got two settings on it so you can get as much air in the board as possible, and then when the pumping gets hard you can flip the lever down and it makes the pumping a lot easier. It is a very easy pump to put high PSI pressure into these boards. A very well engineered pump, like all things from Red Paddle Co. Every component of that pump is replaceable, every component of that pump is recyclable. If you can get spare parts for your pump, that's going to always keep you up and paddling. Looking at the bag it comes with, now this bag has been a well-made, tried and tested bag in the past. A lot of our testers in previous tests have always rated the Red Paddle Co bags as right up there with the best bags. This is a transformer based bag as well, so you have the option of carrying it in a sort of lighter form, so you haven't got to use the full backpack as well, which is great because a lot of us, maybe we don't need the full backpack, just want to keep it in the back of the car, maybe in a simple stuff sack. Now let's jump into some of the features that are on these new Red Sport Pluses. Handles, you've got your central handle, perfectly balanced, it's in the right place, it's nicely padded so you can carry it long distances. It's got a more of a slim down but still a comfortable webbed handle up at the nose and at the tail. There's D-rings up at the nose and the tail. There's a sort of screw-in ram mount style fixing up at the nose. You could put a GoPro in, maybe a light attachment. Then moving back to the midsection on both these boards, you've got their Red Paddle Co bungee system, which is a really neat and easy to use bungee system. You also have like a D-ring here on this first bungee system, so you could slip in a water bottle on its own and it would hold itself there. Just nice little things that shows that they've really thought about how you can actually use this board practically and actually how to keep the gear on there. There are some other brands who have sort of copied this system, but it definitely doesn't work as well as the actual Red Paddle Co system. Coming back to the board, you've got the comfortable red deck pad. I'm calling it the red deck pad because there is red written all over the deck pad. The first part of the section, you've got your sort of square cutout EVA, then you've got your more traditional red EVA, again because the red logos all over it, and you've got a different EVA square cutout of style of deck pad at the back there. If you aren't aware of why different deck pads are good, really it's just reference point for your feet. If you're paddling barefooted, it's very nice and easy to feel where you are on the board, especially if you're moving yourself into more step back turns, which a lot of you might be coming into this style board. Maybe if you're paddling faster, racing, you can get yourself back, or just playing around, you can walk yourself back on the board. That's another reason why there's three little lines here. It sort of shows you if you want to do a step back turn, you've got to get your foot towards those lines, over those lines, or just behind those lines if you're a little bit lighter. Again, it's just another little thing that Red have done to make the paddling experience a little bit easier. Flipping the board over and looking at the bottom of the board, you'll see there's nothing on the front section or the mid section of the board. It's nice and flat, which is what you want to produce as much speed, least amount of drag as possible. But they have added a hard plastic PVC style strip around the tail there that will release the water and make the flow of the water much quicker when it releases from the back of the board. These boards both come with standard 9-inch fins, which are fully recyclable fins as well. The central US fin box is nicely shaped, it's not too long, it fits the fin in well, so it doesn't produce very much drag either, so when you're paddling it, it's going to be nice and fast to paddle. Now basically the fittings and the features that are on the 12.6 are exactly the same as on the 14 foot. The big thing with the 14 foot is it is longer and it's a little bit narrower. You will see that in the outline shape if we get both these up on the screen. The 14 foot has a little bit more width going further forward. Now the tail shapes, they're both fairly square and they've given you a good amount of stability at the back there because of that extra width. Also helps release the water and makes the board slightly faster to paddle. Another thing that you eagle-eyed people will notice is that I have not got RSS battens in these boards. They are here. Now the RSS batten is a patented Red Paddle Co system that they've had on a lot of their boards for, I'm going to say 8 years, 7 years, a long time. Now these battens, just like the Red Paddle Co Titan pumps, recyclable battens, they're very, very flexible now, so they're easy to get in your bags and you're not going to break them. They're a lot nicer to touch and handle than they were years ago, and they just slide down the side of the board and give you extra stiffness. Now the reason this is out of the boards is because I have done deflection tests with these boards with and without battens, which I'm going to speak about in a second. So that is why they are not in the board, but these battens will increase your stiffness and will give you a better paddling experience. Now I'm going to jump into the materials and the construction process Red Paddle Co put into these boards, especially these boards, because these are different from other Red Paddle Co boards on the market. So Red Paddle Co use an internal core of drop stitch like many other SUP brands do. They definitely use a highest quality drop stitch that they can find on the market because they do want to give you the best paddling experience. So the drop stitch is the internal core, but on top and bottom of that drop stitch and really keeping it all together, as you might have heard before, is Red Paddle Co's MSL technology. Now MSL monocoque structural laminate all sounds quite swish, doesn't it? But this is MSL 800. Now MSL 800 is a lighter based material. They say that this is 800 grams lighter per square meter than the standard MSL. Now the reason this is in place is because the MSL is like the strongest, thickest laminate. The MSL 1000 is the lighter laminate, great for traveling, ease of transport. And this is the new one that's fairly close to the 1000. So it's still lightweight, but it's got a little bit more strength and overall toughness. And if you're looking at other boards in the market and you might have heard of single layer, double layer, these are still really double layer PVC boards. So the layers of PVC are put together, there's heat and pressed together, they're not glue like in the old days, and obviously that's going to keep the weight down. Now I do want to touch into something that I find interesting, and a lot of you out there may be asking this question if I don't answer it. So I'm going to answer it right now to save all the emails and comments on YouTube. A while ago I did a video about welded rails. Now interestingly, Red Paddle Co do not weld their rails, but they have a warranty rate of 0.5%, okay? So, and I really want to draw this out as an important point because Red Paddle Co are a B Corp corporation. Red Paddle Co are constantly looking for ways to reducing their carbon footprint, reducing the waste going to landfill, reducing their boards being warranted, and they do not use welded rails. I spoke to Red Paddle Co about this, trying to understand why they don't use welded rails, and they did say that welding a rail is a very good process. But if the rail isn't welded correctly, or there's a problem when you're manufacturing that rail, then that board unfortunately has to be discarded. Now Red Paddle Co could easily have their boards welded, but they have chosen not to. They of course still want their boards to last as long as possible, but they've assessed that using the correct glues with a good quality manufacturing process overall will give you less boards going to landfill, and it will still give you a board that lasts as long as possible for us the paddlers and of course the environment. So that is a really interesting subject. If you've got any more comments and questions on that, please let us know. Now we are going to be doing a separate video with Red Paddle Co about their B Corp standard and what they have to do to achieve that. Remember, to be basically making inflatable paddle boards, which are in effect almost plastic, and be rated and certified as a B Corporation is pretty outstanding. So you have got to give it to Red Paddle Co. They're obviously doing a lot right, but we are going to speak about that to them in another video in a few months' time, so look out for that. And if you've got any questions that you want us to ask them, please let us know that as well. Okay, so let's jump into what these boards are like to get ready, get paddling, what they're like on the water, who should be looking at them. So inflating them, well, it's very easy with the Titan pump, very quick and easy. It's a simple process. You want to inflate them to about 1 psi, slide your RSS batten in. I would say it's definitely easier if your batten pocket and your batten is a little bit wet or it's been used before, or you can maybe even rub a bit of biodegradable soap, just a bit of lubricant down the RSS batten, and that will slip in much easier. Then you want to pump your board up to the recommended pressure, which is whatever standard you want, 15 to 22 psi. Slip your fin in, which is a very easy thumb screw Titan US box fin. Pop your leash on and go paddling. Now, when you first get on the water, you're going to find that obviously these boards are not as stable as 32, 33, 34 wide boards, but they do offer a good amount of stability for their width because they have that wider tail and they generally have thickness going up towards the nose. Even the 14 foot at 28 wide is still very stable, but because there is a fair amount of width throughout the whole length of the board. Putting a few paddle strokes in, you are going to feel that the 14 foot is going to have a lot more glide than the 12.6, being narrower and longer, but still the 12.6 is a very comfortable and easy board to paddle, very streamlined. It doesn't really feel very draggy. When it comes to turning and maneuvering the board, the 12.6 is a lot easier to turn and maneuver. Whether you're starting to do step back turns or you're just doing simple crossbow turns and just paddling and getting the board to turn however you can, you will feel the 12.6 turns way quicker. Getting these boards to paddle in a straight line, well, obviously it depends on what level you are, but even if you're a beginner, low intermediate, these boards do track really well. The 9-inch swept back touring sort of race shape fin that comes with it, and the fin is placed quite far at the back of the board, does make you track in a straight line. But again, the 14-foot is going to paddle in that straight line compared to the 12.6. Stability between the two of them, the 12.6 is a lot more stable for two reasons. It's 2 inches wider than the 14-foot, but also for me at 75 kilos, I'm a bit lighter. It's a thinner board, I'm lower in the water, and I do find that more stable as well. Now I want to talk about the deflection of these boards, how much these boards bend. Now, whether you're bouncing them on the water, using them in choppier conditions, putting loads of weight on them, the stiffer the board is, the better the board is going to perform. Now, the way we do our deflection test, and we have done all of the SUPs we've ever done, is we put them on a gap of 1.5 meters, and then we put a weight of 75 kilograms on the center, and then we measure how much the board bends. Now, as I said, I did this without the RSS battens and with the RSS battens, and both the boards were pumped up to 22 PSI. Okay, so now let's get your guessing hats on, but I'll give you a little clue to start with. The stiffest boards we've ever tested have been 7 millimeters. Now bear in mind, that's probably a 6-inch thick board, that maybe is 14 kilos, it's maybe got loads of material on it, but that's the stiffest board we've ever tested. The flexiest board we've ever tested, about 25, so a big old range there. Let's start with the 5.9-inch board. Now remember, a thicker board is generally always going to be stiffer than a thinner board. So the 14-foot with RSS battens pumped up to 22 PSI, this dropped 8 millimeters. Now for a start, that's a very good deflection because this board only weighs 10.75 kilograms. So you've got a light board that is really stiff. This board could be stiffer if they put more material on it. And the previous board in previous tests that we've done that was down at 7 millimeters was a lot heavier than this board. So you're getting a stiff board for the weight. Take the RSS battens out and it dropped 9 millimeters. So only dropped 1 millimeter more with the RSS batten out. Very interesting. Now this might change if you drop the PSI pressure and maybe paddle it at 15 PSI. I would say that actually that's when the RSS batten would start to making a bigger effect. So it might be one for you to play around with. So looking at the 12.6, so remember this is a thinner board, it's 4.7 inches thick, it's not going to be as stiff. With the RSS batten, this dropped 12 millimeters, which is a very strong competitive drop. Remember, that's nothing to be sniffed at. You've got a thinner board, still very light, 9.75 kilograms. Take the RSS battens out, dropped 13 millimeters. Again, a millimeter difference, the same difference between both the boards. But just shows that you can go paddling without it and you can still have a very well performing board. Maybe if you're heavier, paddling in choppy conditions, entering some races, yeah, you want to have that top performance gain, and definitely that RSS batten would make a difference. Now when it comes to deflection test, that for us is really the benchmark of how a brand and board should be judged, because no matter what you say about your board, if it doesn't have a good deflection, it proves that it just hasn't got the goods inside of it. Okay, it's got to be well made, it's got to be stuck together well, it's got to have the right materials put in the right places to give you as stiff a board as possible, but also bear in mind keeping the weight down as well. So I hope this is all helping. Let me give you a quick rundown of who should be looking at the 12.6 and the 14-foot in the conditions, the ability, and what you're going to be doing with it. Conditions wise, both of these boards are going to handle whatever you want to throw at them. Yes, they're always going to be faster and nicer to paddle in flatter waters. All paddle boards are. But they are nice and stiff. They've got a nice nose shape that still handles chop and paddling into wind very well. They're relatively flat throughout their length, so they do feel quite quick when you're paddling into chop. You will naturally feel that the 12.6 again has more stability in those choppy conditions, and you might have seen some of my old videos in the past when I've gone touring. Sometimes I take the shorter base boards because they do feel a little bit more comfortable in those choppy or rougher waters. Ability wise, these boards are very easy to paddle, and you can be not a beginner, but you're gonna be somebody who's paddled quite a bit before. Maybe you've even got a Red Paddle Co ride, a 10.6 or something a bit slower, a bit more all-round, you could easily jump onto one of these boards. Obviously looking at your weight and the sort of paddling you're going to be doing, you're going to decide on whether it's a 14 or a 12.6, but all intermediates are not going to have a problem paddling these boards. Really looking at the differences between these two boards, you're really going to ask yourself these questions. How far do you want to paddle? How fast do you want to paddle? And how maneuverable do you want your paddleboard to be? If you're looking for a board to paddle in a straight line, go as quick as possible, go as far as possible, then you are naturally going to be looking towards the 14 foot. Being narrower, it will give you more glide than the 12.6. You are going to be able to take this touring, you're going to be able to put stuff on the front, you can easily be able to do an overnighter with this board without a problem. You could do that with the 12.6 as well, but you're going to be able to paddle so much further and it's going to be easier to paddle the longer 14 foot. Obviously the 14 foot is going to be harder to maneuver around. If you are going to be turning it, you're probably going to having to be walking to the back of the board, doing more of a step back turn to turn that board around. If you're going to be going racing, you could easily get into racing with this board and it would easily hold itself and be competitive to many other boards on the market. This is definitely a board that's a step down from the pure race inflatables on the Red Paddle Co range, and it's a step down from the Voyager exploring boards in their range. It could easily jump into those realms and do racing and do sort of touring, exploring, but it's a little bit more of a casual based racer, of a casual based touring based board. So it's not your sole thing you're going to be doing all the time, but you want to give it a go a couple times a year, the 14 foot is going to easily and happily let you do that. The 12.6 is not going to be as quick as the 14. It still has a good amount of speed to it, but it's got that extra width. It's not as long. But for many of you out there, you're not looking at top speed. You're looking at ease, straight line tracking, comfortable to paddle, a large amount of water states you could paddle it in, and potentially be able to put gear on the front as well, but you're not worried about having maybe as much gear or paddling as far as you would be maybe on the 14 foot. And for so many of you that have wanted a 12.6 Sport in the past, but you've been definitely sub 85 kilos and down, you've not wanted to go towards a 5.9 inch thick board. Now you have this board at 4.7 inches. The Sport Plus 12.6 is going to be very, very popular with a lot of you out there. 5-year warranty is standard with all these boards. Looking at the environmental credibility of them, Red Paddle Co have done a lot, and I'm going to speak about a lot more in future videos with their B Corp. There's so many recyclable materials in this board. They're trying to make these boards last as long as possible, and everything they do on the boards, in the boards, or around their boards, including the packaging, is done with the environment in mind. Like even the boxes now, they've reduced the printing on the boxes so they're easier to recycle. They've reduced the amount of cardboard on the boxes so there's less to recycle. They do a huge amount compared to some other brands on the market. So now I'm going to finish off with some pros, cons, and a summary of the boards. Cons, there's only one con or observation you need to be aware of with this. Now, this is where Red Paddle Co are starting to get nervous. What am I going to say? What am I going to say? I'm only going to tell you that these boards are not going to be as strong or as hard wearing as the current or existing MSL boards because they're a lighter base material. With any lighter base material, you're going to have way more performance gains. It's going to be easier, nicer to paddle, easier to carry down the beach, but you are going to have to look after it a little bit more. So not really a massive con, but definitely an observation if you're going to be lending this board out to lots of people to run into the rocks, ram up the beach. You're better off giving them your all-round board for that. Looking at pros, well, you have got an outstanding finish of these boards, like with many Red Paddle Co boards, but these particularly, I think, are very, very well finished. There is not a mark out of place on these boards. They are beautiful. The pumps are great, the bags are great. Yes, you can opt to go in with a full package, or you can go with board only. A massive, massive pro. You can save a bit of money and you can save stuff that you're never going to use sitting in your garden shed going moldy. So that is a really, really big thumbs up. The boards to paddle, they do paddle very, very well. They're very comfortable to paddle and they really do fit a good place on the market, and they fit nicely alongside the current Sport range. There's going to be so many of you that are going to be moving off and wanting to get off of the 12.6 by 30 in the Sport because it's too thick. This is going to be such a nice mid to lighter weight person's board. The 14 foot is going to be so much nicer to paddle further, faster, take you on those journeys, get you into touring a little bit more, maybe even entering some races. Looking at value for money, well, these are top-end price point boards, but they are top-end quality boards as well from arguably the biggest inflatable brand out there on the market. They obviously have done a lot of work into making these boards, the stiffness, the weight, the way they ride. They have thought about the product, and I do think you're buying into a big brand and a brand that's looking after us as paddlers and the environment we're paddling in as well. So there we go. I hope you found that review interesting and informative. I've really enjoyed paddling these boards, and I think a lot of you out there are going to get on the water and really love them as well. Remember, if you want more information at the next level of SUPboarder goodness, check out SUPboarder Pro. There's loads of extra videos on our subscription service. If you've got any comments about these boards, please let us know. I'd love to know if you've paddled them already, if you own them already. Get your comments below. Give this video a like if you found it useful and it helped you, and if you thought it was complete rubbish, let us know in the comments below how we can improve it for next time. My name's Ruben, and we'll see you on another SUPboarder video soon.